What an insane game we just watched to kick off the 2024 fantasy football season. And not only did I hope that you enjoyed that game as much as I did personally, but there are a lot of things that are going to change for fantasy football and some big developments that we saw tonight. So starting out with Mr. Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy is coming in hot right now. Obviously, Xavier Worthy only has 3 touches in this game, but he has 2 touchdowns. Obviously, going to propel him to a massive fantasy week this week. For those of us who drafted him in best ball, we're feeling really good. And for those of you who did a deep flex throw or a deep wide receiver throw in your lineup this week and picked Xavier Worthy, you're benefiting massively from it. But I think what we need to take away here, and what I will not be surprised at all when the snap count percentages come out, is that he received at least 60% of the offensive snaps. He was in there quite a bit on 2 wide receiver sets when it was just him and Rashid Rice on the other side. Now, the Chiefs did run a lot of 2 tight end sets, which we will discuss here in a little bit later, but in a lot of cases when there was only 2 wide receivers in those 2 tight end sets, it was Rashid Rice and it was Xavier Worthy. Only a couple times with 3 or 4 wide receiver sets did you see anybody else. You saw Juju Smith-Schuster once or twice. You saw Justin Watson a couple times. The majority of the wide receiver reps in this offense were Xavier Worthy and obviously Rashid Rice. So with this kind of snap count going forward, all we're going to do is see Xavier Worthy's impact on this Kansas City Chiefs offense just continue to go up. Because yes, today he only had 3 opportunities. Tomorrow, as in next week, he's probably getting another couple. Because if he had just come in and not done well on his opportunities, then we would be discussing a different thing right now. But just based on his efficiency that he showed, as soon as he touched ground in Kansas City tonight, Xavier Worthy is going to continue to increase his overall fantasy opportunities and production for your fantasy football team. So if you have him right now, this is a situation where you just need to hold on to Xavier Worthy. You don't need to do anything with him. I would not try to sell him high, because the last thing you want to do is sell an emerging player on the best offense in football high when he has so much opportunities for more in this particular offense. If you don't have him, I wouldn't say you should trade for him right now, because his price after this game is going to be extremely high. And obviously, if you drafted him in best ball, congratulations, you're with me. I drafted a bunch of Xavier Worthy, and I'm really happy about it right now. And that kind of brings me to our next set of guys right here. Rashid Rice. Rashid Rice really doesn't change too much. Like, this is not exactly that everything changed with him in particular, but Rashid Rice sure did show out tonight. Rashid Rice was the 100% clear-cut number 1 wide receiver in this Kansas City Chiefs offense. And this, of course, was very predictable if you were listening to my channel, for example, over the last several weeks. I went through this several times. If you look back to the end of the 2023 season, specifically the back half of the season, and you looked at Rashid Rice versus Travis Kelce, Rashid Rice was the wide receiver 1, and especially the target number 1 for Patrick Mahomes that last half of the season. So to see him come out here, get 7 catches for 103 yards, and no touchdowns today, they will come. Rashid Rice was no surprise at all to me today personally. This is consistently why I was saying that Rashid Rice was a high-end wide receiver 2 in fantasy, because essentially the only reason he was only being drafted in like the 6th or 7th round at a lot of points during the offseason was because of the suspension that fortunately for fantasy managers did not come. Rashid Rice obviously is not worth a 6th-round pick. He's worth much higher than a 6th-round pick. The only thing that really changes is for people who are wondering if they should be trading Rashid Rice high, since his value is just kind of not set in stone right now and he keeps rising in value. My advice to people earlier today on my live stream was do not sell Rashid Rice, because Rashid Rice is only going to increase in value being the new number 1 target with the best quarterback in the world. And obviously tonight, in a half PPR format, he did really well for you. In a full PPR format, he did even better. There's going to be times where he's going to get touchdowns, and this is just a week where he was not really utilized in the red zone. But to be honest with you, he took a lot of Travis Kelce's role, and that leads me to Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce tonight was a big disappointment for a lot of people who drafted him really high. So obviously, number 1, I had been sniffing this one out for over a year now at this point. Travis Kelce's decline is not a surprise. This dude is in his mid-30s. And tonight was just kind of another piece of information that we could take as evidence. Travis Kelce had 3 catches for 34 yards, so it's not like he was just like totally invisible or anything like that. What's really important to note here is just how involved Noah Gray, the second tight end, was. He had 3 catches for 37 yards. And I'm really interested to see what the snap count percentage was for Noah Gray because he was on the field in two tight end sets quite a bit in this Kansas City Chiefs offense. And on limited work, Travis Kelce really did not show his tackle breaking ability and his elusiveness like he has always had. He did not look particularly good. So Travis Kelce is a guy that not only did I see just losing opportunities in this offense to Rashid Rice, because that is exactly what happened, but we also saw him cede legitimate tight end volume to Noah Gray in 2 tight end sets. If that continues, Travis Kelce managers should be in full-on panic mode right now. Now, I don't want to overreact. It's literally just week 1. There's going to be weeks where I do believe Travis Kelce is going to be a really good fantasy asset for you, and he will return value on where you drafted him in certain weeks. But what I am trying to tell you is that he should never have been going this high in ESPN drafts in particular this offseason. And for those of you who did end up getting Travis Kelce, you may want to think about trying to sell based on name value over the next 2 weeks or so, depending on how he does in week 2, and let this moment die down. Because obviously this moment, everybody's paying attention to what people are going to say and how you're feeling about certain players. Let this one die down because at the very least, he did fulfill the underdog line of getting more than half a yard in fantasy football this week. And speaking of free lines like that, if you want to take advantage of another one this weekend, Dak Prescott's free line is at 0.5 total yards. Obviously, you're going to get a big W if you go ahead and take that. So if you want to take advantage of it, go down in the comments and grab that link in the comments below and use code FFN to sign up for Underdog, where not only will they match your first deposit 50% up to $1,000 in bonus cash, you'll be able to take advantage of this free line right here. So use code FFN to do it. Now, moving over to the Ravens side of the ball. Obviously, the big name who almost just won the Ravens this game, Isaiah Likeley. Where did you come from? Now, Isaiah Likeley has always been a guy that I've liked. I actually drafted a ton of Isaiah Likeley in best ball drafts because what we had been hearing about all offseason with Isaiah Likeley and the Ravens offense and how they were going to utilize him was that there was going to be more emphasis on using 2 tight end sets throughout the duration of the 2024 season. Now, personally for me, like I've always been a big Isaiah Likeley guy because whenever he steps in for Mark Andrews, if he's hurt, he always does really well in fantasy football terms. Tonight was so much different though. This was the first time that I've seen the Ravens really utilize the 2 tight end set. And this was the first time that we've ever seen Isaiah Likeley have this big of a fantasy impact while Mark Andrews was playing. This was a massive game for Isaiah Likeley here. And honestly, when the snap count percentages come out, I expect him to have had 75 to 80% of the snap count at least. Isaiah Likeley was out there all game. Obviously, at the end of the game, basically the second to last play of the game, got injured. He was down for a while. He got taken out of the game. Then he comes back in almost to win the game for the Ravens and should have had 2 touchdowns. Just was an inch away from getting his foot down, and that's why it is a game of inches. But the reality here with Isaiah Likeley's fantasy value, get ready for him to be a priority waiver wire pickup. At the tight end position, Isaiah Likeley is to be utilized. For me, I don't believe this was a fluke because, again, Mark Andrews was very active in this game. Mark Andrews was out there plenty. I will say this, there were plenty of times where I saw Mark Andrews on the sidelines and I thought to myself, is he secretly hurt? Are they just kind of putting him on a snap count? Because obviously he was dealing with an injury leading into the week. So there is a chance, I guess, that he was filling in a lot more than he usually will because Mark Andrews was hurt. But that should not take away the fact that Mark Andrews had 2 catches for 14 yards and Isaiah Likeley, while Mark Andrews was in the game, was Lamar Jackson's #1 target. Do not let that go unnoticed here. Lamar Jackson loves throwing to his tight end. That's his wide receiver 1. Even Zay Flowers didn't have a great game. 6 catches for 37 yards. That's going to be his usual stat line. The big play guys are the tight end for Lamar Jackson. So Isaiah Likeley, if he continues to be in on 2 tight end sets, is going to be potential a top 5 to top 10 tight end in fantasy football. Now let's bring it to the other Ravens right here that I'm somewhat concerned about. Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a guy that I was actually kind of big on all offseason long. Now, with Derrick Henry, what I consistently said was I do believe that he has potential to be the leading rushing touchdown getter in the entire NFL this year. I believe he has that ability. And based on tonight, he got in the end zone, which was good. He saved the week for fantasy managers because obviously he's not going to get any catches with this Lamar Jackson run offense. That's just not going to happen for him. But what really was depressing and very concerning and sounded a red alarm for me personally and probably many of you. This Baltimore Ravens offensive line was really bad. Like really, really bad. Lamar Jackson was under consistent pressure all night. And honestly, Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, Spags is a genius. He knows this team and how to beat them. He's consistently beat the Ravens over the years. So it doesn't really surprise me that they did that well. But what I can tell you is just the amount of time that Lamar Jackson was under duress and the amount of time that Derrick Henry was really just getting swamped in the backfield. It's a problem because Derrick Henry does not look like the explosive. He has the explosion that he used to have as an offensive running back. So unless they can figure out this offensive line, I do see some potential issues with Derrick Henry returning value. I believe he still will be good at the goal line, which is a good thing for his fantasy value, but his yards per carry probably will not increase unless they get this offensive line figured out.